Hi, and welcome to this eGym sponsored webinar on Leave No Members Behind. I'm Guy Griffiths from GG Fit. We help people to get fitter and healthier by working with clubs on member retention initiatives that get their members to stick around longer to achieve that healthier and fitter result. So this is a repeat of a session that we ran at the eGym Roadshows a couple of weeks ago. Also present were UK Active, Big Wave Media, NetPulse, and obviously eGym presenters too, talking about lots of different topics. But the focus here on the next 30 minutes or so is on member retention and member journey, leaving their member behind. I'm going to focus a lot on onboarding. We're going to talk about some measures and show you what steps you can take to ensure that your members stick around for longer, and that you don't leave anyone behind. So there's three areas I'm going to cover, talking about the joining stage and then checking in on members over the next few weeks, and finally progression. The whole idea is to be able to create and manage and measure a simple new member journey. There are a couple of mentions of eGym, but really the whole of this webinar should be you can apply the tools and methods used here in any situation, regardless of whether you're using the eGym kit. There are some eGym examples at the end, though. So, in terms of joining, obviously in the workshops, this was quite interactive. I was asking people what happens on joining. If you want to, you can put your hand up in the webinar here and offer some advice or ask questions. But just think of 2 or 3 things, or even 4 or 5 things that happen in your club as new members join. There's some suggestions here. The icons might give you some ideas of what happens as new members join. Hopefully you've got 1 or 2 ideas or thoughts of what you do when new members join, or what you should be doing when new members join. The ideas here that we've got are things like welcome messages, setting up appointments for inductions, or for setting up programs, or for going to your first class, maybe a body measurement, or joining a new member challenge. PT can also be important. If you can offer members a PT session in their first few weeks, it will certainly help them to progress and might help to sell PT further down the line. There'll be more on that later. Hopefully PT isn't necessarily shouting at them or showing off your muscles. It's more about setting goals and targets, I'd like to think. Now, I can't go through all of these joining appointments or occurrences in a half-an-hour webinar, or even in the 10 minutes I've got for this section. So I'm going to focus on welcome messages and the induction, and on an initial class booking. So the welcome message is important. Have a think. Again, it's difficult in a webinar rather than in an actual workshop with lots of people, but why do we send welcome messages? Well, it's a nice thing to do, and it welcomes the new member. But one of the important reasons to send out welcome messages to members is to find out what levels of engagement you've got already. And you'll find that out from things like open rates. So if you send 100 welcome messages to 100 joiners, how many of them get opened? So how engaged are the new members? How many of those new members click a link within the message? If you tell members as you join them up that they're going to get a welcome message and that there's a link in there, you'll find your click rate goes up. And that kind of interaction and action is much better than just sending the message out to them. Okay, so telling them there's going to be something in there, because your goal of sending these messages might be to get people to download the app or to set up an online login so that they can book classes. So telling people they're going to receive these messages, it will do much better than a good subject line, although that's important as well. The other thing to consider in sending welcome messages is how many of the welcome messages bounce. Generally, 5, 10, even 15% of your welcome messages could bounce. Sometimes it will be because the member didn't know their email address or got it wrong, or sometimes it will have been entered wrong into your CRM. And managing those bounces is very important as well, because if we've got a wrong email address on day 1, it's going to be very hard when we get further down the line to send them a high five message at the end of month 1, or to try and get them back by using email if they become absent further down the line. So calling up people whose emails have bounced in the first case is a great way to get those email addresses right. It's another good interaction you can do. Resending the message to people who didn't open it is also something you could try. But ultimately what we've got here is focusing on email. You could also consider alternate channels. When we send messages out, if we've if we've got 100 joiners, maybe we've only sent 90 messages, you could consider sending the other 10 by letter or by text message. So try and welcome all your members, because you'll get a measure on how engaged they are, and also you'll help your member journey further down the line. So just a bit there on welcome messaging. The induction is also important, although more and more clubs now are going away from the word induction, just because it has some historical connotations. Lots of people have had a bad induction in the past. So, and the induction isn't about necessarily inducing someone, it's about welcoming them, getting them started, or getting them on step 1 of the journey, which implies there is a step 2 and a step 3. So why do we have an induction appointment, and why do we have an induction process? There's lots of reasons, and the reasons normally given in workshops are health and safety, show people the equipment, give people a program. The key reason for me to have an induction is to ensure members make one visit, which sounds a bit crazy, but there are a lot of clubs and a lot of budget gyms out there these days who have 10, 15 or more % of their members joining online and never making one visit. So the reason inductions are important for me is to ensure people do actually make that first visit, and to make that first visit interesting and welcoming, because the aim of the induction, or the goal of the induction, is to ensure that the members make a second visit. It's making sure members don't get left behind. So for me, that's the goal of an induction. We'll also get some measures and some stats here, and we'll see how many new members requested their induction, booked it, and attended it. You'll also, conversely, have a list of members who declined the induction or who didn't show up for the induction. And there's things you can do with those members. Call them, message them, tell them that, yeah, fine, they've turned down the induction, but they will be missing out, and members who have inductions stay longer, because all the research shows that. And if they'd like to rebook it, or if they would like to book an appointment in month 2 or month 3, then that's no problem. We can do that for them. It's also really good to get feedback on inductions as well, and this is something we're doing more and more of. Feedback from inductions is generally really positive. If you show that feedback to the instructors, they will do a better job. They will be keener to do more inductions and show it to sales staff or whoever's signing members up, and they will use that feedback to help sign up more people to inductions. In other words, to sell the induction, or whatever you call it, the getting started session, more. So just a little bit there on inductions. And then finally, the first class that a member does. We do want to try and encourage all new members to book a class within their first month. Not everyone will want to, but we should try and encourage everyone into the class, because once they attend it, again, we can get some feedback, but we also can see, in terms of our new members, what is the status of our 100 joiners from last month, how many of them have booked a class, how many of them have attended a class. And the ones who haven't booked a class in their first month or haven't attended one, let's try and sell the classes to them. Let's track that. Let's give them some kind of message that says, you've not been to a class yet. Can we recommend this one? Or call them, or at least just have a measure of how well our classes are penetrating or catering for our new members. Possibly put on a new member class every month that new members can go to and feel very welcome and not intimidated. So just a bit there, a little bit about joining and some metrics, which are then going to lead on to this check-in phase, the next part of the process, to see how members are doing in their first few weeks or months. So it's important to monitor members, not to just say, we offered an induction, they didn't take it, they're on their own. We want to know how members are doing. And you don't need to check on all these points I'm suggesting here, but here are 3 ways looking at a 7-day check-in, possibly by phone, as you can see, a 14-day check-in, not necessarily for everyone, but we might have a list of people we're going to check in on at 14 days, and a 28-day check-in, some kind of communication that's going out to members there. If you've got an automated system and very good processes and great staff that want to do this every day and call members who joined 7 days ago, that's great. An easier way of doing it, and depending on your sales numbers that are coming in each month, it might be easier to look at members who joined 7 to 14 days ago and call people in their second week. And then the same thing for the 14-day check-in might be for people. You might run this every Monday or every Thursday for people who joined between 14 and 21 days ago. So that's just a bit about making the process manageable depending on what systems you use, and who's actually doing this. So I'm going to jump in quickly to the 7-day and then the 14-day and then the 28-day check-in, whichever way you do it. You don't have to do all these three, but here are the ideas. So at 7 days, it's a great idea to make a 7-day call. Some clubs do this at 14, others at other intervals, just to check the new member is okay. And what we do is we check that they have had their welcome email, whether or not they've had their induction yet, or if it's booked in the next few days, if there's anything else they're worried about, have they attended a class, and just generally, is everything okay? And you'll normally get some really good feedback. If there is anything going wrong, you'll find out about it nice and early and be able to put it right. So if there's an option to rebook their class or rebook their induction, then you can do that. So those are the actions off the back of this call. If everything is just hunky-dory and they're really having a great time, then the natural next question is, do they have any friends that they'd like to bring down to the club for an appointment? So as well as being a check-in on people, it can also be a referral call at 7 days, because, as I say, everyone's feeling pretty good about being a member of the gym after 7 days if they've made those first few visits. Quite a few clubs we've worked with have said they do this. A top tip is to mystery shop it, whether that is actually mystery joiners who are joining up and going for an induction and measuring that whole process, or you can just put in an entry into your CRM that is a check every month to see if those members are actually getting the calls at 7 days, whether it's an actual phone call and conversation or just leaving a message. It should happen, and it's a no-brainer really. It makes a big difference to your new members and will help you to ensure no one gets left behind at this early stage. So part 2, the 14-day check-in. Why do we do this? Well, again, it's just part of leaving no member behind. Who could be getting left behind? As I said earlier, you're not necessarily calling everyone at day 14 or between day 14 and day 21. You can if you want, and if you have the resource, that'd be great. But this is maybe a short list now of people who you didn't manage to get through to at 7 days and who haven't had an induction. So you left them a message at 7 days, but you haven't spoken to them. They haven't had an induction or been to a class, and maybe they didn't open their email. So out of 100 joiners last month, if you're calling the 20 or 30 at day 7, there might only be 5 or at worst 10 members that you're going to be calling at day 14 to day 21. You could, if there are more than 10 and you want to reduce it further, just look at people who've only made 1 or 2 visits to just bring that, to filter it down and segment it, or build in other risk factors that you have. So the 14-day check-in, ideally it is another call, because you maybe haven't spoken to this member already and it's now been 2 weeks since they've joined. The call could be backed up with a message, particularly if you're leaving a voicemail, so you could send a text or an email off the back of it. Ideally, it's an in-club interaction, but if this 14-day check-in is for low-volume users, you maybe don't want to wait for the in-club interaction to happen, because we're not sure that they are going to be back in the club. They might be getting left behind already. So that's the 14-day check-in. As I say, pick and choose between these depending on your resources and your member flow. The final part, I'm calling it the 28-day check-in or the graduation. It could be at 6 weeks, it could be at the end of month 1, or some clubs will do this after 10 workouts or a certain number of workouts. And it's the point we're saying, look, you've graduated now. We're not saying you're no longer a new member, you're still relatively new, but we're effectively moving people out of the new member journey into the next part. So it's a congratulatory message or call or some kind of communication to say, hey, it's been a month now, aren't you doing great? And I'll caveat that with if the member has made 4 or more visits, or whatever number you choose. 4 is pretty good. If someone's made 4 visits in their first 4 weeks, then they're doing well. You might think they need to make more, but if they're coming regularly, that's enough. If someone's made less than 4 visits, you can send them an encourage message. So it's just the same kind of communication. It's just a bit more encouraging, hopefully with a call to action in to say, come in for a program review or whatever it is, a weigh-in or a class soon. And by sending 2 different messages, only slightly different, you're then getting a simple KPI on first month visits. So you'll have out of 100 members, you might have 80 who've made 4 visits in their first 4 weeks or first month. And then you've got another 20 who are, they're getting the encourage message. So they're not quite making that cut. And as well as sending them a message, you might follow up with something else, maybe a phone call. It opens the communication channels as well. So where we've sent a welcome email and then maybe made a call and then maybe another call and an email, this is something that's going out again to everyone. And we often send this by text message because it opens the text channel to say, look, we're going to be communicating with you by text as well. And it's great to send an encouraging or a congratulatory message in the early days so that members will know that they are receiving messages from their club. If you can't send a text, maybe the member's opted out of text messaging or you've got a wrong mobile number, then what we do is we send this by email or we send it by postcard or letter. So everyone at the end of month 1 gets some kind of communication, and we get that KPI, the key performance indicator, on how our first month visit's going. It's a very easy way to build a simple KPI. So, for example, here we go. 80% of members have got the congratulation message, 20% have got the encourage message. They are maybe in danger. We might do something else with them. But that's a stat and a KPI that we can use to say a lot of things. How are inductions going? Are we delivering in our first few weeks? How many people are making 4 first month visits? How can we improve this KPI? So a little bit there about checking in with members in their first few days. I'm rattling through this on this webinar. Please, if you do have any questions, then stop me. There'll be a bit of time at the end for questions. But this is faster than the workshop because there aren't any there aren't as many interactions as we had there. So in terms of progression, the third and final part, progression is important. Just have a think about why we want to progress members. So one thing is to give them something measurable, and for us to measure how many people do progress as well. So talking about goals and targets and timing, and knowing when you join at some point we will be talking about progression. That could just be a program review, or it could be another weigh-in, for example. But it's something that we are aiming for with the new member. It's also something that once you have done it at the end of month 1 or into month 2 or even 3, it's something that hopefully is repeatable, that we can do again and again and again, which is why a program review is a great progression, in that it's something that you don't have to do every 4 to 6 weeks, because not everyone will exercise plateau, despite the common belief. But it's the point here is you can keep doing it and get a member into the habit of progressing. And finally, it's just a great opportunity to congratulate the member and to give them a high five, a thumbs up, or even a physical certificate to say they've progressed. The pathway to progression is not that important. You can progress even if you didn't have an induction and maybe you didn't answer your 7-day call. But if you can get people from joining onto progression and into the habit, then that's really good. More people will progress if they have an induction and if they have the right kind of interactions along the way. But the point is, if we can get people to progress, then they will stay longer. They will get into the habit of progression, and you'll sell them more PT and all these kind of things as well. So, what is progression? I'm going to dip in a little bit to eGym Premium and show you some stats and KPIs on this as well, just to wrap the presentation up. So, progression are things like the exercise program review. That's the classic progression a sit down for an hour and go through all your exercises and your goals and the equipment you're using. It doesn't have to be a sit down for an hour though. And a lot of clubs we've worked with, we've kind of debunked that and said, look, you can just sit down with a member or even stand up with a member, ask them what they like, what they don't like, change their program card or their program on whatever system you're using. And you can do that in probably 5 minutes with them, and they will be more motivated after that quick program review. Or it might just be a chat with them about their goals, or you could be talking about nutrition or anything else. So the program review doesn't have to be more, faster, further, harder, heavier. It can just be a quick, what exercises don't you like? Let's change your program to make it more appropriate to you or what you're aiming for in your goal. Another example of a progression is to have a standalone measurement, either a simple jump on the scales or a full body stat measurement to show what differences people have. And that's something, depending on your setup and your systems, you might even have members who get a reminder to go over to the scales and get on there and record their stats and link that through to the other system. And you can see that people are progressing and are taking that measurement every month or every however often. And the final one I'll mention now in this eGym webinar, of course, is the eGym Premium Progression, which is a great excuse or something for people to aim for and for your instructors to have that interaction and also to give people balloons and gold stars, of course. So eGym Premium makes quite a big difference. I've got the stats in a moment, but in terms of the member, the worker bee here, they get progression, they get something to aim for. They know that when they join, they've got the option to progress onto premium, to be upgraded, probably for no extra cost. They get more program options, they get goal-specific training, and a lot of members say that they get personalization or personal training from the machine. It doesn't take away from personal trainers. In fact, if anything, it helps them to sell more PT, I would say. For the club, the beehive there, it's an excuse for interaction. So it's a nudge or a reminder to go and interact with this member because they've been here for this long or they've done this many workouts. Let's get them onto eGym Premium. Let's open up that world to them. And it's just a great chance to congratulate and to upgrade the member to make them feel good. So members who are on eGym Premium and who progress in general, they visit more often, they stick around longer, they get results, they get faster results. And the stats we've got from this with Premium, my video's in the way a little bit there, sorry. They work out they visit 25 to 50% more. They stick around 10 to 20% longer. Faster results was on the banners that we had at the eGym workshops, but we see that they get 25 to 50% more revenue. And the stats here, you can go back to our previous presentation at the last eGym events. You can look at those on ggfit.com/nextpro if you want to. There's a lot more stats and things in there. So that's the benefits of eGym Premium. Just jumping forward onto the final stats and looking at some examples to kind of put all this into perspective. If we've got 100 members join, and it is always 100 in my book because it keeps the stats slightly easier, but 100 people who are joining, if we see that 80% of them are making 4 first month visits, then it's likely that a lot of those people who are making 4 first month visits are going to progress onto a program or onto premium. Whereas these 20% here who aren't making 4 first month visits, they're less likely to progress. So what happens further down the line or in month 2 is that a lot of these green members have turned blue, they've had their program review or they've gone on to eGym Premium, whereas only 1 in 4 of the members who made less than 4 first month visits have progressed. So we can see that out of the 100, 65 have progressed onto premium. If we can get more members to make 4 first month visits, we'll get more members to progress onto premium or onto a program review. The next example here, if after month 1, half of our members, and this is fairly typical, progress onto a program, so they have that second appointment or that program review in probably month 2, we know that those members are more likely to buy PT. So you can see 1 in 10, so 5 members out of the 50, 1 in 10 have bought PT over the next 6 months. Whereas the ones who didn't have some kind of program review in their second month, if you're lucky, 1 in 50 of those will buy PT. So this is just explaining or showing personal trainers the reason why we would like to get more members onto a program at the end of month 1. If we get them onto a program, you're going to sell 10% of those PT. The ones we don't get onto a program, it's going to be very hard to sell them PT. So let's try and get more people onto a program, because they'll buy more PT, but also because we know then they will stay longer. And finally, this is from a big leisure operator who have over 1,000 members on their eGym system after 18 months. And it's just showing the difference in visits per month of the members who are not on eGym. The members who are on eGym are visiting once more per month on average. But then when members go on to premium, we really see those members making quite a lot more, 3 more visits a month than the non-eGym members. And it is a massive difference in terms of that visits per month. That compounds, or that replicates itself in terms of the length of stay. So the length of stay and length of membership of non-eGym member compared to an eGym member, they stay 2 months longer, classic eGym members, and premium eGym members staying 3.5 months longer. These length of memberships don't look very long. That's because we've done this study comparing like with like. And to do that, we just looked at members who joined in 2018 and 2019, rather than members who've been there for 10 years who've gone on to eGym or who haven't. So to get some comparable data, we just looked at members who joined in 2018, 2019, which means that this retention curve is quite steep. It tends down to 0 because no members have been members for more than 18 months. But the point is the difference between the lines here is around 11% better for eGym Classic or Premium members. So they are being better retained than your regular members. And if we just look at the area below the curve up to 12 months and say that if the average member brings in £100 over 12 months, it's a lot more than that, of course. But the eGym member will bring in £131. So it's 31% more revenue in this case, just from these joiners in 2018, 2019. So that's just a couple of stats there on retention, a dip into the eGym data that we've looked at over the last 4 years working with eGym. It's been a pleasure to deliver the workshops and to do this webinar and to put the message out there wider. So your key takeaways, hopefully, know what your key joining actions are. What should most of your members be doing? What are you going to encourage all of your members to do, whether it's an induction or a class? Check how they're doing after a week and or after a fortnight and or after a month, and help them to progress. Measure that progress for them and for yourself. And don't forget to tell them they have progressed and to congratulate them. If you leave no member behind, then all your members will stick around longer and they will all be fitter and healthier, and that will keep everyone happy. If you have any questions, please feel free to raise your hand, stick them on the webinar here. I'll be around for another 5 minutes or so. If you're watching this after the event, then feel free to drop me a line, guy@ggfit.com, or find us on all the social medias @ggfit. You can review the slides, the Prezi, on ggfit.com/eGymInsights, or as I say, you can watch this again in review. We'll stick it up on YouTube as well, which I think is Guy GGFit. So thank you very much for listening. Any questions now, please let me know. Otherwise, we will probably stop the live recording, and we hope to see you, or look forward to seeing you at the next eGym event very soon. Thank you.